This is Jam Nation.
With Jonesy and Amanda.
It was the story that had the world obsessed. 40 years ago, Sydney mother Lynn Dawson disappeared and was never heard of again. Many of her close friends and family were convinced that her husband, Chris Dawson, had murdered her. Yesterday, there was finally justice. Chris Dawson was convicted of murdering his wife. This whole push for justice was given the biggest leg up by journalist Hedley Thomas and his podcast, The Teacher's Pet. We have him joining us now. Hedley Thomas, hello.
Hi, Amanda.
Hedley, how did you feel when this verdict was read out yesterday?
You know, Amanda, it was a really weird feeling because we had been hoping for a result like this for a long time, for, many years in Lynn's family's case. And in my situation, I thought that 4.5 years ago when I started doing the podcast, this would be a just result. But when it finally happened, it was, I think, sorrowful. You just thought about all the incredible sadness that had been inflicted upon Lynn's family and her daughters and her friends. And the fact that Chris had got away with this for 40 years, I don't think there was a sense of elation, at least in the courtroom where I sat. I think in the overflow courtroom, the crowd was almost cheering. But, we just saw an old man being led away, limping in cuffs like a wounded animal.
And he will never admit to it, though, do you think?
That's a good question. Greg Sims, Lynn's brother, has pleaded with Chris, who was the best man at their wedding, at Greg's wedding to Marilyn, has pleaded with him to tell the family where Lynn is. Is there any way they can properly put her to rest? But Chris might go to his grave denying that he killed her. He told so many lies in the scheming and manipulating cover-up that he effected over the years. But, if he came clean now, I know it would put Lynn's siblings and so many others at ease.
It's one of the hardest things is thinking about her daughters who grew up being told that their mother had left them. I don't know if you believe something for so many years. I don't know what difference this will make to them. But from the outside, you think surely this will make them feel better.
It's an incredibly cruel lie to be raised believing that your mother cared so little about you that she took off and didn't even bother to check in or ask after you or renew contact over 40 years. That's an awful thing to grow up with. Chanel Dawson, Lynn's eldest, who is a beautiful woman with her own child and so warm and decent and friendly and loving, she has seen through the subterfuge, I believe, and knows what's gone on here. I've had a lot of contact with Chanel. The younger daughter, with whom I've had no contact, I can't know what she's feeling, but they must both be in a lot of pain because they've lost both parents.
And JC as well. She was a victim in this. She was pretty much effectively groomed by Chris Dawson.
That's right. I mean, she was a high school student when he made a beeline for her. He was the PE teacher at Cromer High, and he became, as the judge said, completely obsessed with her, girl half his age. And, Lynn Dawson tried to do the right thing. She saw JC as a kid who needed support. She came from a difficult family environment, and Chris said she would benefit from spending a lot more time at their house as a babysitter and then effectively moving into the house. But Lynn eventually worked out what was plain to everybody else, that Chris and JC were in this incredible situation, and it must have sped up her demise when Lynn refused to sell the house, and when JC didn't want to start a new life with Chris in Queensland. I think she wanted to live her own life. She wanted to go out with boys her own age, the relationship had become so complicated for her. You can understand.
Yeah.
As a 17-year-old, as she was then, or 16-year-old, she was utterly just completely out of her depth with a man in his early 30s.
And he wouldn't let her go.
And you brought it to the fore because poor old Lynn, as you said earlier, was accused as a bad mother, a mother that left her two children, and she never would have done that. So thanks to you and the Teacher's Pet podcast, you brought this to the light. You have made a difference. One man has made a big difference here.
Yeah, look, thanks very much, Jonesy. I think the renewed effort by the police from the Unsolved Homicide Squad over the last 6 or 7 years has been remarkable, and the prosecutor, Craig Everson, did an extraordinary job through the murder trial over May, June, July. What the podcast did, I think, was raised for millions of people utter disgust and anger that the system, the criminal justice system, until recent years, had failed repeatedly to prosecute Chris Dawson over what most people could see were his barefaced lies. And the judge yesterday took a very narrow pathway to conviction. He really focused on Chris's lies, which he said were born of a consciousness of Chris's guilt. And those lies were repeated, and then, of course, it's very difficult to remember lies. People remember truth, but how do you remember lies over years? So he told more lies as time wore on. But the podcast, I think, highlighted so many issues that were wrong and alarming and needed to be properly looked at. And we will probably never know exactly what prompted the prosecution, the DPP, to finally launch a prosecution where they had repeatedly said they would not. But the family's really glad they did. We had a number of drinks last night, and it was a really nice time, actually.
And deserved as
Absolutely. Well, Hedley, I know also we can find out more at theteacherstrial.com.au, still following the case there. Extraordinary work, Hedley.
Good work, Hedley.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay.
Thank
Good morning.
you.
Bye.
Hedley
Thank you
Thomas.
so
Thank
much.
you very much.